So I noticed that there's a few more people in the audience than usual today, and I recognize them as also members of our foundation board. So they must be here to hear the annual presentation Karen is putting up now. So this is your annual presentation on the CLC Foundation, your report on it. Karen, are you going to introduce the folks here?
Yes, I'd be honored to be able to introduce the folks here. Very first person on the very end is Judy Haga. She's one of our foundation board members.
Delighted to be here. Very interesting.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Barb.
And then we have Chris Piazzi, who is our CLC Foundation board chair. We have Joanna Rowlett, who is our former board chair and our current board development chair, committee chair. And we have Dave Galla,
Honor to be here, thank you.
who is our golf committee chair. So, and we had Bob Robro here for a few minutes, and he must have stepped out. So, it is, and I'd also like to be able to introduce Laura Gergley, who is our annual giving and alumni relations manager.
Let me just ask everybody, I just want to give a round of applause to the foundation board members for coming here and for working with us. You see a calculated value on that in this presentation, and that's a lot.
It is. Well, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to talk with you about the CLC Foundation and to be able to do our annual report to the Board of Trustees. We're going to be covering 5 things through this presentation. We're going to talk about our mission and goals, our results, the board leadership that you see here, the value of their expertise, and the future opportunities, challenges, and risks. Our mission as a CLC Foundation is to be able to raise money to provide scholarships and grants to the students at CLC. We like to be able to say that we make impossible dreams become achievable goals. Our goals, as a matter of fact, for a foundation board is about 3 years ago we had a strategic planning process where we set a goal to increase our funds raised to $1 million by 2020 or more, and to increase our endowment fund to $2 million or more by 2020. And here's how we did in fiscal year 2016. As you can see, our funds raised were about $1.4 million against the 2020 goal. So we're overachieving on funds raised. Our endowment is about $1.4 million, also against a goal of $2 million, and we have some opportunity to be able to increase our endowment over time by 2020. Let's take a few minutes and let's just go through the details of how did we raise $1.4 million in this past year. In the blue area, those areas are very visible to you all in terms of what it is that we do for fundraising. In other words, you know about the gala, you know about the golf outing, you may get a year-end direct response piece. Those of you who are employees participate in the employee campaign. We received corporate grants and gifts, and then the Alumni Association for about $570,000. What that does, though, is that provides us donors who are giving maybe at the $500 level, the $50 level, the $100 level, and we use that as an opportunity to be able to cultivate them in the next area for major gifts. As you see, the part that's in the tan area is actually where we're raising about $815,000 last year, and that's predominantly invisible to most people because we're sitting down with individuals privately talking to them about donations. So we have major gifts of about $700,000. We have grants from foundations of about $80,000. We have endowment gifts. One of our endowment gifts last year was from Barb and Bob Oschlager. Thank you again very much, to make up the $810,000. And that's what makes up the $1.4 million. We are very sad to say that the market has been very volatile and that we had an investment loss last year of about $41,000 on our investments. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that was about a 1% loss, and the year before we had about a 1% gain. So you can see that we have some challenges in the area of investment management that we will be addressing. Oops. I wanted to spend just a few minutes about what we've done over the last 3 years to be on a board level and on a college level from a teamwork perspective for fundraising leadership, and this is kind of our kudos slide. You have Dave Galla, who's here as one of our board members. It is because of his leadership as the board chair of the golf committee that our golf outing did so well, but what he did was he reached out to companies that he works with to be guests and sponsors for the gala and the golf outing. Jan Zobus, many of you all know Jan Zobus. For the last 2 years, we've gotten grants from West Deerfield Township in the amount of $20,000 and $30,000 each. Rob Hausworth, our vice chair who's coming in, is in the process of working with Rust-Oleum to be one of our large sponsors for the upcoming golf outing. And this is done through his relationships with Rust-Oleum, even though through WPDI we also have a relationship with Rust-Oleum. For example, Joanna Rolick, who is the executive director of the Lake Forest Lake Bluff Chamber of Commerce, one of our chamber members is Diamond Mortgage. The CEO of Diamond Mortgage just so happens to be a CLC alumni in the 1970s. I think he was
Student vice president.
Was he a student vice president?
Student vice president.
Student vice president. Yeah, and he's going to be coming back next week as the guest of Joanna and Dr. Weber to be reintroduced to the new CLC, and we're going to take them on a tour of CLC. We're going to take them on a tour of the new Willow Cafe, and he's going to be able to eat in the Students Cafe, and it's a way of being able to start cultivating some of our alumni and our distinguished alumni. Mike Trimble, one of our CLC Foundation board members, for those of you who are at the gala, I think this is a tipping point leadership, fundraising leadership opportunity that happened. Mike Gala won the trip raffle at the gala, and he turned around at the gala and donated it back, and it went for $6,000. That's an incredible fundraising or act of philanthropy. One of the things that Mike said was that 10 years ago, when he was at a gala, and this is when he was young in his career, he said he always wanted to be able to sit on a board, and he saw a board member do that, and it was one of the things that he had as a vision that he wanted to do. Judy Haga, who's been she talks about the fact that she's been with CLC since the beginning. She reaches out to the Exchange Club and the Libertyville Women's Club and provides donations. One of the things that we do here as a part of our major gift fundraising is, for example, Dr. Weber sits on the Lake Forest Community Foundation board, and there on the board are the Buchanans. He introduced the Buchanans to CLC through a tour of the Lakeshore campus, and then we talked to them about making a grant over a period of 3 years through their family foundation. Nick Calieris, I think, is here, and one of the things that he and Dr. Weber did, along with Dr. Haney and along with Dr. Frazier, who's the Dean of EMS, put together a grant from Granger to be able to start a new logistics program. And then one of my favorites, because it is a collaboration with one of the deans, Arlene Santos George. We have an anonymous donor who 3 years ago was giving about $500 a year for Waukegan ESL. She has a passion for English as a second language student. And because Arlene Santos George was able to come in and be able to help show who were the students who would be getting the grants, showing the outcomes for the students, introducing the donor to their profiles and the students, we've been able to move her giving from $500 to $1,000 to $7,000, and this past year she's given $14,000. And it's those kind of partnerships that is showing the kind of movement that we're getting from a fundraising perspective.
And Karen, too, I want to make the point here that this has been a real shift, and it started 3 or 4 years ago, but our foundation board are now opening up and creative about connections. Karen has a portfolio of people that she sees, and starts to develop. Then she'll bring me in to talk to them. So we're working as a team in different ways. Jan Zobus found this connection. Then we sat down at lunch with the donor. So we're kind of working this through, and it's starting to blossom, I think, in a number of ways.
On our one-on-ones with Dr. Weber right now, we also have a call list that we go over every time of his stewardship phone calls to be able to make along with his cultivation calls. And that's a real change from where we were at 3 years ago. We are very much proactively doing that. Let's take a look at how the CLC Foundation has done over time. The top line is funds raised. The amount of funds that we raised in fiscal year 16 were about 1.4 million. The college costs for fiscal year 16, and we now are including all costs when we're calculating the costs of the foundation and the investment by the college in the foundation. That includes payroll, benefits, space, a part of finance time. It includes all of our non-payroll dollars. That was about $750,000. We've only done that for going back for the past 2 years. Previously, the only costs that were calculated were just salaries costs. That's why we put in both lines, was to be able to show you when people were talking about the investment before, they were only talking about salaries costs, and we've made a concerted effort to be able to keep our costs about constant and to be able to keep our salary costs about constant. In this particular slide, we're showing you the comparison of funds raised and scholarships awarded. In fiscal year 16, as I said, we raised about 1.4 million. We awarded in fiscal year 16, 951,000. That's the blue line. One of the things that we did in fiscal year 14 at the foundation board at the finance committee was we said we are going to raise funds this year for awarding next year. And that's to avoid the problem that you see on this graph where the blue line goes above the green line, which causes assets to be negative. And so now we've completely turned that situation around. So what this means in terms of foundation return on college costs for fiscal year 16 funds raised, we have about an 82% return, or for every dollar you give us, we give you back $1.82. For scholarships and grants awarded, it's about 25%, or for every dollar you give us, we give back $1.25. For our endowments, as I showed you, our goal is to raise $2 million or to build the endowment up to $2 million by 2020. This is going up, but it's going up at a much slower pace than what we've done with funds raised. This represents a key opportunity. Trustee Paul, last year you asked me a wonderful question, and that was, so how does the CLC Foundation compare to other outside charities, and how would it rate? Well, the key rating agency or group for outside charities is Charity Navigator. From a donor perspective, because of your investment, from a donor perspective, we're able to say to a donor, nearly 100% of your donation goes to scholarships and grants. So we would be rated a 4-star charity because we would have a score that's nearly close to 100 on that one. From a CLC perspective, meaning taking into consideration you all as donors and you all as investors, we would be a 3-star charity. Our score would be a score of 85 out of 100, 90 and above is 4-star. And what we need to do to be able to get that 4-star for the CLC is to be able to maintain our college costs constant, and we've got to be able to increase funds raised. Currently, it's costing us about 35 cents out of every dollar of funds raised. For us to be 4-star, we need that to be about 20 to 25 cents cost of funds raised out of every dollar, and that's a fundraising cost. You've seen Dr. Weber acknowledge our wonderful and inspiring foundation board. Over the last 3 years, we've had some board members who've retired. We've also had some board members that we've added. We've added 4 board members in fiscal year 16 at the beginning of the year. And at this upcoming meeting in November, we're going to be adding another 4 board members. The cumulative amount of hours that our board members put in for meetings, committee meetings, community functions, and fundraising This year was $2,810 for a value of $421,500 at a cost of $150 per hour for the 29 board members. If we look forward to fiscal year 2017, what are our opportunities, challenges, and risks? One of the things that we have as a challenge that Ken and I are taking on, along with Dr. Weber and along with the Board of Trustees and along with the Foundation Board, is we need to create between the CLC Foundation and the College of Lake County a memorandum of understanding, and that was one of the things that was covered at the, let me see if I can get the initials right, at the ICCTA meeting on Friday. Yay! I've made it. The other challenge that we have that Ken coming on board is really going to help us with, and we're addressing it tomorrow starting at the Finance Committee meeting, is you can see that our investment management performance is underachieving, and we need to do something to address it, and we need to do something to address it proactively rather than sitting there saying, wow, wouldn't it be nice if we got better returns? So we are doing that with Ken's leadership and with Ken's guidance. One of the key opportunities that I think that we have, as you saw from the major gift portion area, or if you remember back to it, is that there was a big zero there for legacy and planned giving. One of the things that we did launch at the beginning of this fiscal year was a CLC Legacy Society. We have a clear opportunity to be able to build our legacy and planned giving. And one of the things that we're planning on doing this fiscal year is launching a planned giving society. And we've brought on some board members that are going to be key. Joanna Rowett brought in Beth Miller, that are going to be key as attorneys to being able to help connect with that particular community within the Lake County area for us to be able to get that started.
Rick Lesser.
Yeah, Rick Lesser,
Rick Lesser's a-
and Ed McGlynn. So we need that group, along with Ken Roscoe, to be able to start reaching out beyond our board members to other folks within the community.
Right.
At the estate planning level. We also need to be able to build our endowment.
It's not me, I was going to say.
And then one of the things that's both an opportunity and a risk is both on our annual giving and on our major giving side. If you look at our annual giving, we have two events that are the net proceeds are about $200,000, and there's some risk associated with those that we're going to have to be addressing. The same thing with major giving. If you really dive deep into the major giving, we have one donor who we are very grateful for. Thank goodness for our one donor. Since I've been here, she's increased her giving from $250,000 a year to $375,000 a year to $500,000 a year, but that's our one donor. We need to backfill with some other donors who can, if something happened, be able to fill in, so that's one of our risks. Oops.
Karen, I will say this, Karen's done a nice job though too of taking folks who were giving, let's say, $1,000 a year, and one of the pushes our foundation's been is to go back to people and say, you know, if you give $5,000, that's enough to take a student through a whole year, and we call those life-changing scholarships. And so we've had a number of them, I know because I make the calls to say thank you.
Yeah. So and from a fundraising perspective, that's one of the things that's very key in terms of best practices, is that you want to be able to have people give the initial gifts during the annual giving area, during the annual giving time, either through the gala, the golf outing, through direct response, or through the employee campaign. And that initial gift might be $50, $100, or $500. And then through moves management is what it's called within fundraising, you want to be able to move them from that to a $1,000 gift, like we did with our anonymous donor for Waukegan ESL, to $7,000 to $14,000. And that's done typically privately and in partnership with both foundation board members from staff and with Dr. Weber. Trustee Olschlager, here is the details of some of the things that Robin Schwartz, that your colleagues did a wonderful job at the ICCTA meeting. They outlined a memorandum of understanding as a template that I believe that we'll be able to take so that it'll be much easier than starting from scratch to be able to create that memorandum of understanding. And as you can see on the first line, for those of you who are at the ICCTA, we have all of the numbers and initials that you need to have to be classified as a public charity foundation, which is very, very important, and that's one of the things that we made sure that we got changed within the last 3 years, because we were classified as a private foundation previously, and the reason that that's important is because certain foundations cannot give to you. If you cannot give, a private foundation can't give to a private foundation, and so therefore it restricted donations. The other thing that we learned on Friday is that one of the things that they call them institutionally related foundations, because we're related to the institution. The mission of the college is, our mission is to raise private funds to provide a margin of excellence. And this is one of the areas that is a challenge, and it's an opportunity for us to improve, is that we do the endowment investment management. And then last but not least, one of the things that institutionally related foundations actually do is by being able to raise private funds for a margin of excellence, we can provide some flexibility for innovative programs to be able to try things out, very much like you would do in a venture capital perspective. That might look like 1 million degrees at CLC. That might look like the Promise program. Those are the kinds of things where the foundation can be able to add value. Last but not least, this is the difference that your investment in the CLC Foundation makes, is the students whose impossible dreams become achievable goals.
Okay, questions, anything?
Yeah, a couple of questions. The endowment. So once we get to the 2 million figure, are we going to be using the endowment? Are we going to be?
The actual endowment of the 1.4 million is permanently endowed. So what gets used every year is the earnings on that endowment, and that's already currently being used.
Oh, you are? I thought you would be building and just reinvesting.
No, it's also very much based on donor designation. But what we sit down and talk to a donor with, so for example, when we sat down and talked with Barbara Bumholzschlager, they put in their endowment, and then they said, okay, we want to be able to use the earnings on this for these types of students, and we want all the earnings that the Finance Committee authorizes to be available for scholarships when they're available. The CLC Foundation Board has established a funding range, spending formula of between 3 to 5% of the value. In other words, you're hoping that you're going to earn 8%, and then we want to be able to spend of that the 3 to 5% to be able to do that. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, so you're already.
We're already
I
doing
thought
it.
you'd be accumulating and trying to.
Yeah.
It's like
We want to be able
reinvesting.
to build principal so that we can spend interest. So that we can spend income.
Income off interest.
Yeah.
So, with the investment year-over-year loss of 1.08%, does that mean that you don't get scholarships that year because the gains are not there, or you're taking the interest income only? Is it interest income or accumulation value?
It's both.
Both.
It's
So,
both.
so if you're taking the interest income, you're getting some interest from your bond portfolio, right? And, but you have a decrease because of a loss in your investments. Are those netted before you give out the money, or have you already committed 3 to 5%?
No, what we do is, if you look at this chart, you can see the green line and the red line are the 3 to 5%, and you can see the returns. So when we have earnings that are the blue that's above the green line, those go in reserves. And your hope by being within the range of the 3 to 5% is that if you go below, like you've seen it dip below in other ones, that you have enough reserves to be able to then pay out for whatever the Finance Committee says. And you've got the flexibility of choosing between 3, 4, and 5% or something in between. The other thing that the CLC Foundation Finance Committee just did this year, because they had not done this before, is that they said that each endowment, if you don't have enough reserves, you need to be able to have 3 years worth of reserves at 15% before we could do payout. We don't do that for any of the ones in the past. That's what I would say to you for any of the ones going forward. Okay? What we have is we have a gift. We also have endowments where the donors have said, I only want you to pay $1,000 out, but they've earned in the past $1,500 on that. So we've got quite a lot of accumulated reserves on some of our endowments, so that there's only one that I know of this year that we had to say, I'm sorry, you have to build reserves. We cannot pay anything out on that endowment. Fine, moving on.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, Karen, yeah, just refresh my memory too. Well, first of all, thanks to Robin Schwartz, who actually did our presentation in Springfield on foundations. Again, it's kind of nice to know that our own attorneys are doing the training for the statewide trustees association. But one thing that came out during that professional development seminar was wanting to build a much closer relationship between the boards of trustees and the foundation boards. And I know right now we have 2 liaisons from the CLC board sitting on the foundation board. I don't know if they are actually official voting members of the board, but if they aren't, it is highly suggested that that those 2 trustees, whoever are sitting on there, are actual voting members of the foundation board as well. So you might want to consider that as we're moving forward with that memorandum of understanding.
And I think that was one of the things that both Ken and I wrote down as a note to be able to recheck the bylaws, because I didn't remember off the top of my head. And absolutely, we need to be able to make them be voting members based on what we learned on Friday. Any other questions?
Just comments. Jen Elvis, Lisa Trace, and Sandy Yeah, your co-chairs for the gala, I thought they did a great job.
Thank you.
And your staff as well. It was a lovely event. When it was last Saturday, right? Yeah, last Saturday. That was a great event.
Thank you.
And, I always think what's one of the most many impressive things, but certainly when the students speak and show their gratitude for the foundation money that's raised, I think that's really the highlight of the event. So kudos to you and foundation members, and especially to Sandy, Lisa, and James Owens.
Thank you very much. And the staff member who did all the, who was the leadership who did that was Laura Berkeley.
Thank you very much.
Great report,
Thank
Karen.
you.
Great
Yeah.
report. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Okay.